All right. Yeah, so last night was a rough one. Obfuscate 52521. I was trying to load JavaScript in a dynamic fashion. The issue I was having though is that the JavaScript would load, but then it wouldn't load in time for any subsequent JavaScript that may have loaded faster to execute a function that was in a previous JavaScript file or a prerequisite file, if you will. So I was like, man, I mean, I spent hours on this. I had to fix this for, I had to, put in the same fix for a project that I'm doing on my day job. So I'm like, oh man, how the hell am I doing this? I was up until like 3 o'clock in the morning after the stream and everything. I think the stream ended maybe around 12 or something like that. But I was just in like just researching. You guys saw how I did that. I went quiet for a while, just while I was just eating some stuff and clicking around and I just could not figure out how to do it. I was looking at things to, asynchronously load all this stuff and so on and so forth. And then I started to think about my templating engine. I won't make this video very long because I'm just taking a quick break here at my job so I can actually put this content out. And also sorry about not putting up a tree week video. I missed another one. So I usually release things Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 12 p.m. So I'm late today. But I just wanted to get this out because I've been working on this problem and it was like really cool to get it fixed. And also allowed me to explore some other things that go on using the template engine handlebars. So with handlebars, you can actually do if statements, or you can do actually helper functions as they call them. And you can define these helper functions in like Node.js, and then it will render the template accordingly. Now with loading templates or loading um, uh, JavaScript, uh, it everything that I did worked if I had the JavaScript already rendered in the page. But if I loaded it dynamically after the page was loaded, so for instance, I have my fat.js file, that dynamically loads all the subsequent JavaScript. But if I had that in there from the get-go as a in a script tag, then it worked fine. And I'm like, whoa, how the hell? I was like, all right, cool. Let's see if we can find a way to auto magically or to do this dynamically. So you have to define what they call a helper function. So as I said, in the next stream, I'll go a little bit more in depth into this, but for now, I'll just show you what I did. So first, I created a file, server, view, and then I created a folder called handlebars. So all my view level code will be underneath the view directory. I could put this under a controller and it'd probably work, but this is actually be better under view. And then I have a file called helpers.js. In helpers.js, I have a function, and then that function just has a whole bunch, will have a whole bunch of functions in it. So for now, it only has one function, right? And then I export that function as register helpers. All right, so cool, that's there. Now I'm going to take that, and the order is, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take that and I'm going to go ahead and put in my index.js. So I'm going to call it an index.js. I have my handlebars helper functions equals require, and I require that file. So this is the order in which it should be done in terms of putting all this together, right? So that file has already been done. I require it here. Then I go down a little bit after I've, defined my helper, my function engine, or sorry, my template engine. Now I can go down here and do a variable called HBS, and then exp or express handlebars dot create. So I'm not creating that with, and it's an empty JSON object. I'm not passing that anything. That's already defined up here. So express dash handlebars. And then now I'm going down to here, and I'm doing the same thing I do with my routes. So that way I can dynamically add anything, and when it reloads, I don't have to put anything in there. For loops are great for things like this, to dynamically add certain things. And you can just add the code, and then just kind of add it and forget it and walk away. And then everything should work as long as your code executes properly. So add those four lines there. So once I add those 4 lines, now that helper function should be available to the template engine so it could render. Now I need to server view, and then I'm gonna go to my pages and then my layouts. And then in my layouts, I have a couple different ones here, but I have admin.handlebars and oh, actually before this, before view, we'll go to controller where we actually define our routes. And I pass my own special variable in handlebars. So with handlebars, there's some like variables that you can pass that are default, like the title, layout, and title layout, and I think there's a couple others, but I haven't used them. I don't use anything else. So this is like my title bar, and I can call that in my I can call that with wait, where would I call that? I can call that when and I'll show you in a second, but I can call that when I'm defining my layout, and I can call that call that portion or this variable when I'm actually rendering my layout. So I have title, layout, and I've added custom JS. And in this custom JS, kind of like the for loop that I was trying to create last night, I have a list of JavaScript or custom JavaScript. In this case, I have a little bit longer list, but what this will do, once this is, it'll read through this list, and I can add as many as I need to because it's just an array, of course. And with my helper function, as you saw, if you pause the video, as you saw, I had, it was like just a for loop that went through this array here that's defined and goes from there. And then just adds everything as a script tag. And actually, yeah, I'll break it down in the stream. I won't take up too much time here on this because I want to get back to work and got some other stuff I gotta get done. So view, and then I'll do pages, and then layouts, and then admin. So I have my different layouts, and then my different layouts I have, custom JS and things like that. Now I use my helper function, and then also the built-in if helper function, or the if conditional that's in handlebars. This is where you see that I use that title variable, and then it just equates to some text there once it's rendered or served to the front side. So if I go down here, this is where I actually call that helper function, and then I pass it custom.js. But before that, I say if custom.js. So if that variable exists. So on some endpoints, one thing I noticed is that when I was applying this to the code of my day job, there's some pages I want to use custom.js or have, custom.js, and some pages I don't. So I add a quick if statement. The if statements in help in not helper but in handlebars are very primitive, so they just evaluate the true. So you can't do any real complex if statements or anything like that, or conditionals. It will say, hey, listen, just make a helper function that does all that for you. So as you saw, I defined that helper function there earlier in the first file. And so I just say if custom.js, so if this variable exists, then you can go ahead and load this. So I'm not testing if it's a valid array or anything like that. This just tests if it's true or false. That's it. Or whether that condition that you put in is true or false. I can't even put in like if custom.js variable equals something. Like I tried that and it didn't work. Maybe I was doing it wrong, but it didn't work. So, and that's fine, like, learning about it and everything like that, so that's fine with me. So now, with this being the case, and with all that put in there, here we go. So now if I look at this page and I do an inspect, oh great, here we go. If I do an inspect on this page, now everything gets loaded. There isn't, as before what you saw, or what we saw last night, was that it had the entire URL in there and everything like that in the script source file, or the script source attribute. So we don't need all that. It loads everything as needed, and it loads everything kind of, in a sense, quote unquote, cleanly, if you will. But it loads everything here, and it loads it as the page is, it's delivered, rendered, and all put together for me. So I'm loading all this stuff dynamically, but on the back end, I'm doing it from the back end. I'm rendering all this in the back end, then sending the rendered HTML to the front end, which is what Handlebars does anyway, especially even with our partials. So now, once I do all this, I could just do reload, and now it actually loads all my JavaScript and does everything. So for instance, I did the same thing for the login page. So if I go forward slash, actually, let's go here. Same thing for the login page. The difference here is that I put in the previous directory, the dot dot forward slash. So with that, I got everything in place. Everything looks good here. Um, if we go back to the helpers file, but you'll see here that the custom JS that I pass in, actually, that's this. Okay. So this is the helper function here. The custom JS array that I pass in is right here. And so that's where I call in the load custom JS helper function. And then I do this here. And then I load that. And then I put in everything in terms of my HTML, and then put in the proper script tags, put in the information for what the file is, the location for that file relative to what the page is when it's rendered. So if I'm in like forward slash login, it's going to be period period forward slash and go back from there. Another thing, as you can see here, if I go back one special syntax, if you do double curly braces, it'll actually evaluate the result of this as just plain old text. But if you wanted to evaluate as an actual HTML element, because I put in all the script tags with the sources and everything else like that, if you want that to actually show up properly, you have to do triple curly braces or triple mustaches or handlebars. That's why this whole thing is called handlebars, because those look like handlebar mustaches. So, um, and I think this is like a superset of mustache, the mustache, what is it called? Mustache JS, which is another templating engine, and handlebars is like a superset, so it builds on top of that. But yeah, so that's how I did my helper function. That's how I got this to load all my JavaScript dynamically, and that's it for now. Guys, as always, thank you very much. I'll try and do more of these solution series or solutions videos after the fact once I figure something out, so you guys don't really have to wait until the next video, usually if I have time. And usually these are going to be a lot quicker, so it's a lot less talk and explanation and getting right to the code of it all, or right to the actual solution. As always, thanks for listening, and do your research, man. If you're not taking what I say with a grain of salt, then you're low on sodium. Do work outside of work so you can make your work even look even better. Peace.